We're delighted to announce that tonight's show is brought to you by Fantasy Serie A. Head to fantasyseriea.com and use an in-game budget to build your ultimate team of Italian football stars in one of the most popular fantasy football games online. You can take on friends, fellow Laziali or other Calcio fans from your country in a selection of leagues throughout the season.
Welcome everybody to another amazing episode of Lazio Lounge. I'm Vittorio Campanile. With me again, as usual, Alison McKenzie. We were hoping for a better Wednesday, Mr. McKenzie, against Inter. We know it was a complicated match. It's the typical match. You can see it two different ways, right? The positive way and the negative way. A defeat, which doesn't help, but especially in the first half, Alistair, Lazio had so many chances and put so much pressure on Inter that it was good to see. But at the end of the day, 0 point. Lazio still out of the Champions League position, obviously. What's your thought about this match?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I find it quite hard to find the positive spin on it. I know what you mean in that it was a commendable performance against a team that have won all their games so far this season, against a team that many people are tipping to compete for the Serie A title this season. So, you know, this was always going to be one of the hardest away games that Lazio are going to have this season. But at the same time, I don't think there are too many fans out there anymore who take really any satisfaction from performances that are characterised by creating a lot of chances and failing to score, because that's been going on for the entire year now. The last 9 months, it's been an ongoing theme, and it's apparently not being fixed. And it's a bit frustrating to have to talk about it again, because on top of that, there was another lifeless second half performance, which is yet another depressing theme that has been raising its head at the start of the season. And yeah, you know, it did finish 1-0 to Inter, and it could have been easily on another day a draw or a win for Lazio, but it wasn't. So I think that I'm still hurting a little bit from the fact that it's ended up this way, and I expect a lot of other fans are too.
Alistair, we have a lot of questions, and a lot of Lazio fans are complaining about the decision of Simone Inzaghi. It was quite surprising, I think. I don't know if you agree, seeing the starting 11 of Lazio. There was rumors that Immobile could not play because of how he behaved against Parma. But at the same time, we saw Inzaghi changing. Well, we knew Radu was injured, so he wasn't called to Milan. But apart from that, Leiva didn't play, Lulic didn't play, and obviously Ciro Immobile didn't play. So there was a lot of changes in the starting 11. Were you surprised? And how do you think Inzaghi made the right move?
Well, yeah, first question, yes, I was surprised. I think everyone was surprised. It was essentially, you know, with Bastos coming in as well, who, yes, granted he was coming in because Stefan Radu's not well, but with him coming in as well, Parolo in that kind of anchor of the midfield role, and like you say, Johnny and Caicedo starting, it looked more like a Europa League group stage lineup than it did a biggest Serie A game of the season so far lineup. And that came as a big shock, if I'm honest, particularly because Inzaghi doesn't exactly have a track record of throwing big surprise lineups out there in these kind of games. But in terms of the whether he got it right or not, I wrote a whole piece today for our sponsor's website, Your Fantasy League, about the fact that I think he actually got it right with dropping Immobile. It's probably not a very popular opinion with a lot of people, because on the face of it, you're dropping your top scorer, a guy in amazing form. But, you know, when Inzaghi came out after the game, he talked about it being a tactical choice, and a lot of people, I think, scoffed at that suggestion and thought it was a bit of a defence, and probably something more to do with punishment for his little tiff he had getting substituted against Parma. But actually, he did get that right. It's quite hard to argue he didn't get that right. I mean, the combination of Caicedo and Correa caused more problems to that Inter defence in that first half than they've faced all season so far. Caicedo provided a platform to build those attacks from. He was a target for the defenders to hit from deep. He set up so many of the chances that Lazio created. I mean, Samir Handanovic was having the game of his life. But if you look through the highlights, Caicedo's at the centre of almost all those moves. The one where he plays Correa in one-on-one, the one where he lays off to Correa for that shot that Handanovic tipped out of the corner. Caicedo was the guy who set up Bastos. And a lot of people will complain about Correa's finishing, quite rightly, because with all these chances, he really should have put at least one in the net. But you can't argue that he wasn't creating the opportunities. He was getting in the right positions, and he was actually testing Handanovic. I don't think you can criticise Correa for the fact that Handanovic has pulled off 2 amazing saves from his shots, because it's his job to get those shots on target into difficult areas, and he did that, and it was just amazing goalkeeping that stopped it from going in. So actually, I think he got that decision right. Once Immobile came on the pitch, Lazio had nothing to offer. And I don't think that's Ciro's fault. I don't blame that on his door. I think that's more to do with Lazio just giving up in the second half, as they usually do. But it also went to show how important Caicedo was to the way that Lazio were building those attacks against a very physical Inter defence. So that's my opinion on the Immobile one. I'll let you take over about the other ones. The other ones I wasn't in agreement with. Johnny for Lulic I thought was very strange, and Parolo for Lucas likewise, but you can take over with those ones if you want.
Yeah, even because you've been speaking for 5 minutes and a half, you could have
finished
the podcast and,
that was me actually trying to summarize, and it wasn't easy.
and you didn't, because you spoke only about Caicedo. So, as you were saying, I was surprised, but at the same time, it's the job of the manager of making this tough decision in complicated matches. I thought at the end we all have to agree that the Caicedo move was the perfect one. I was really, really surprised to see Johnny start, because that was a very complicated match against Inter, because Johnny didn't make his start in a Serie A match before Inter, and we know that the biggest concern of Johnny is how he's going to defend, and against a team that is probably most dangerous in Serie A with Juventus, it was a bold move. We can say it didn't work out, because, and we're going to talk about the goal that decided the match is a mistake from Johnny.
And Lazzari.
Yeah. And Inzaghi defended that decision and so on, said that it wasn't a mistake of Johnny. I don't agree totally with him. On the other side, we have to say that Lazio have been really dangerous with Johnny, and we don't know if with Lulic there, things would have changed. On the other big change, we have to say that Parolo have improved, and he can play in Leva position. I think he learned the position better. Probably he trained this summer, because let's not forget that Leva missed a lot of matches this summer, so Parolo have played there, Cataldi have played there. So, the biggest question mark was Johnny, and I would say that he took his risk. Maybe Lulic wasn't fit. We saw Lulic every time finishing the match with no energy at all. So maybe Inzaghi thought he needed a rest. Obviously, I would have preferred to see Johnny starting against Genoa next Sunday instead of on Wednesday against Inter. But overall, I would say, probably Johnny was his mistake, was the only mistake he made. So the fact, Alistair, is that a lot of our listener and a lot of Lazio fan are blaming Inzaghi, saying Inzaghi out, Inzaghi should be sacked. But I still feel that even with all this decision he made, if Correa in front of Handanovic scores twice, Lazio win that match even with Johnny. And we are here saying, wow, what a great manager Inzaghi is, because he make those changes and they all plan out.
Yeah, I mean, I'll pick up on a few of these comments. We've had so many that I'm going to have to try and wade through them a little bit. I mean, I saw Jerry Mancini said a lot of people are frustrated with Inzaghi, but at the end of the day, he can't put the ball into the back of the net. which is a good point. Maddie says Inzaghi's at fault for the second half. The team was playing well before substitutions. I think that second point's a really good one. Jerry's right in that, look, Inzaghi did set this team up in a way that they could win the game, because the way that Lazio played in that first half, they didn't really get tested by Inter an awful lot beyond the goal, and they created a lot of chances, dictated the tempo a lot. They played very well. So the way he set that team up, the strategy he had was a strategy that could have won the game. So I don't think you can really criticise him too much for that. But I would agree about the second half. I think, again, there was a kind of lackluster nature to it. It was almost like there was a certain point where they just gave up on the idea of being able to get a result from that game. I felt like it was maybe Correa's header. I think it was within a few minutes of the second half starting, Correa heads wide, unmarked from about 6 yards out. And so many chances had come and gone by that stage that I think it seemed like that was the point where everyone was like, well, this just isn't happening tonight. We are not going to score against this team. And yeah, once the substitutions were made, it did absolutely nothing to change the course of the game. Yes, you can blame Inzaghi for that, but particularly the fact that he brings off Alberto for Lucas Leiva. You're chasing the game. Why bring off an attacking midfielder for a defensive one? You've brought off your main creative outlets for a guy who, yes, he will shore things up and give you a measure of control over the match, but he's not going to win the game for you, get you back in it. So yeah, I think that the second half, I hate to be that guy, but it was kind of a game of two halves, this one, because Inzaghi set out the team well in the first half. He was let down by their inability to convert the chances they created. And I think his main criticism should be the way that he couldn't get his team to respond to that again, and the substitutions he made weren't able to change the course of the game.
Alistair, I'm pretty sure football is a game of two halves.
Maybe you're not familiar with this expression.
Anyway, one really, really important point, I think, and it's not only about this match, it's about this season. The substitution last year, when they were coming in, they were often able to change the match. I think of how often Correa came in from the bench and scored, but he wasn't the only example. Cataldi scored at the derby and so on. This year, every time someone's coming off the bench, he's playing terrible. He's not able to change the match. And didn't happen only against Inter. I don't know what's going on, but this is something that it's happening all year long, even though the season has just started. And we know how important subs are in the modern football, because they come in fresh. They come in a very important part of the match, because it's the last 20 minutes usually, and that's where a match can be decided. And this year we saw that when they come in, Lazio stop playing. So it's very concerning. I think this is a big problem, even because, against Spal, Milinkovic-Savic came in, who, should be one of the best player of Lazio. Wednesday, Immobile came in, and he didn't do nothing. I think this time wasn't Immobile's fault. I think simply the Lazio midfielder was done. Lazio couldn't not react, not do anything else. And against Inter, that doesn't allow that many goals, it was really difficult to rely only on Ciro Immobile. But I think, Alistair, this is a big problem. And I agree with you saying that first half, and Conte as well said it, first half Lazio deserved much better. Lazio should have been ahead. In the second half, Lazio had that chance with Correa. Inter had another great chance, and Strakosha made two great saves. But apart from that, Lazio didn't do nothing else.
Nothing happened, yeah.
So that's the most concerning point. And you usually expect a team that is losing do substitution, and those subs come in and, change the match. Instead, they finish the match, but on the other way around, helping Inter taking the 3 points home.
Well, yeah, and I think this was a great example of, a winner's team versus a naive team. That is the problem, I think, when you've got a coach like Conte versus Inzaghi. Inzaghi still is a bit naive in his management at times. It was frustrating for me to hear him after the game do his usual thing of saying, "Well, I can't remember that when Strakosha made a save." He says that almost every post-match press conference and interview he does. He always brings up the statistics. He always comes in armed with how many shots we had to them. Well, it's not just a matter of numbers, mate. This isn't a game where statistics dictate results, and you have to find a solution if that's not working. That's his job, but he is just blaming this the bad luck. He's bringing out the bad luck card too often, and I think that's what's frustrating people more than anything. And yeah, you saw last night, going back to the point, a team that was, Inter weren't particularly impressive last night. I think we can all agree, but they got the early goal, and then they weathered the storm, and then after that they just played the game they wanted to play it. They took control in that second half. They dictated the tempo. They could have got a second goal late on with Martinez, and the camera panned to Antonio Conte on the bench in stoppage time, and he's there like screaming at his players, and he's there celebrating, the tackles and clearances or whatever it is, and getting the ball up to the corner flag. Or, this is a guy who knows the importance of those small margins, who knows how to see out a result, because you'll have 3 points on the table, and that's what keeps them at the top. Just far too often, Lazio are incapable of showing that kind of spirit and that kind of, that nous really to know how to make the right decisions at the right moments and to kill a game if you need to as well. I think, I went on a huge rant a couple of weeks ago after the Spal game about the whole learning our lessons thing, but if Inzaghi's ever going to actually learn a lesson from an opposition coach, I hope it's from what Conte did with his team yesterday.
We have to be honest and say that Inter didn't play great football, and it's not only against Lazio. I've been watching Inter all season long, and they played bad, but try to score against this team is pretty much impossible. And I thought Lazio was the only team that was able to shot on target so often, and without Andanovic in such a great form, probably Lazio would have scored a lot of goals. But this is a typical, I would say this Inter is a typical Conte team, not playing great football, but very, very consistent, very, very well organized, especially in defense. And if you make a mistake, they're gonna punish you, and that's exactly what happened with Lazio. And that's exactly the problem for me, Alistair, because if you want to be a big team, a team that fights for the Champions League, you know that these important matches are decided from episodes. And if you make a mistake, big teams are going to punish you. Maybe Spal, you can get out with one or two mistakes. But against Inter, against Juve, against Roma, let's not forget, Lazio drew a derby because Milinkovic-Savic did a handball in the box, and Roma had that penalty, and Strakosha didn't do nothing else for the rest of the match, but still Lazio got 1 point, and that was a silly mistake. Against Inter, pretty much happened the same thing. Inter didn't have a chance. Johnny fell asleep, and D'Ambrosio scored with a header, and that was it. And all the chances Lazio created was because Lazio played great football, not because Inter made mistakes. And this is the biggest difference. You can say that Lazio played a great football, that Lazio played better than Inter, but Inter is the team that's going to fight for the Champions League, for the Scudetto, because they're a big team. They know that these matches are decided by episode, and so they are very careful in not making mistakes. While Lazio, I always get the impression, Alistair, that they're going to allow you to score at least once in every single match. And this is the problem why I don't think Lazio is a big team. It's a great team at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the most frustrating thing for me, is that Inzaghi isn't learning that. He's really not. that's, I think, in my mind, his biggest weakness. He seems to have still not grabbed that point, the point that football is a game of fine margins. The Derby one's a great example, actually. You can't complain about the statistics and come into the press conference and say, "Oh, we had 21 shots to their 9," or whatever, and I don't remember Strakosha making a save. Well, who cares? I mean, you conceded a penalty early on for handball, and then he said, "Oh, Dzeko was looking for the hands, and he's good enough to do that." Yeah, exactly. He is good enough to do that. And these things happen. You concede penalties all the time for handball nowadays because of the new rule. This shouldn't be news to anyone. This isn't a surprise. I mean, it's staggering, really, that a manager at this level isn't capable of kind of appreciating that, and he doesn't appear to be. That's the most frustrating thing about it. I still think he's a good coach and he's a smart coach tactically, but he just doesn't quite seem to grab that, and it almost feeds in from the whole kind of siege mentality around the club, with the media in almost every regard, to be honest, their inability to really respond to anything that happens. Inzaghi's almost characterizing that siege mentality of, "Oh, the world's against us and we're just trying to fight our own good cause." Well, I'm sorry, that this is how football works. Fine margins will go against you, but the best teams will find answers to it. And the problem is that's just not been happening so far.
One thing to all the people that say we have to sack Inzaghi, we have to get rid of Simone Inzaghi. Do you ever sit down and think, okay, if Lazio sacks Inzaghi, who's going to be the new Lazio manager? Don't think, Mourinho will be on Lazio's bench, or, I don't know, any other big name you have in mind, because this never happened. So, one thing when you consider, okay, Inzaghi lost the locker and the players, which I totally don't believe. But think for a moment who's going to be new Lazio manager, because that could be even more concerning. At least Inzaghi proved to be able to play great football, knows Rome very well, knows Lazio very well. And again, I agree when we say that Johnny shouldn't have played yesterday against Inter, but overall Lazio played better, and if Correa didn't make those many mistakes, Lazio would have won the match, even with those bad decisions of Simone Inzaghi. So guys, when you think Inzaghi is the problem, I don't agree. I think Inzaghi didn't say to Correa, "Hey, when you're 1-on-1 against Andanovic, please put it wide, because it's better like that." Or to Milinkovic Savic, "Hey, play 40 minutes and then the second half don't play. It's we don't need it." Guys, it's impossible to believe Inzaghi saying this to Luis Alberto. 50 minutes, that's enough. The other 30, 40, who cares? That's the problem. Inzaghi doesn't play. He put the team on the field, and then the players, you're Correa, you should be scoring instead of lobbing Andanovic and putting it wide.
I don't think anyone's making that suggestion, but the point is, it's his job to instill the right mentality in these players, that they stay calm in these situations. They know how to manage the game.
I know, yes, I think the biggest concern is, you see, Candreva with Antonio Conte has become a player again. He's back, and then you see how instead Lazio players don't react with Simone Inzaghi. This is the concerning point. But still, Milinkovic Savic should be playing as Milinkovic Savic, and Luis Alberto as well, and not only with a small team like Parma. They should be performing at high level even against Inter, and this is not happening.
Yeah, well, I mean, looking at the next, the upcoming run of fixtures, it's really, really crunch time now, because this season has been a bit of a disaster so far, if we're honest. I mean, that's 3 defeats, 1 draw and 1 win in the last 5 now in all competitions. And now this run of games coming up. Genoa at home on Sunday, then Rennes in the Europa League, then a trip to Bologna. That won't be easy. They've started very well. And then Atalanta come to Rome. And there is another international break, actually, between the Bologna and Atalanta games. But, Vittorio, how important do you think it is, let's say, over the next week, the Genoa and Rennes games, to get 2 wins? And do you expect that there will be real pressure building on Inzaghi if things continue to go badly?
Well, of course. I think winning Sunday, it's really fundamental, because it's true it's just the beginning of the season. It's true there are plenty of matches to recover, but you have to put up points, because you always need them, and send a message to the team, to the other teams as well, and say, we weren't lucky against Inter. Inter is a great team. It's gonna be very tough for everybody winning there, but we put we put a lot of pressure on Inter, and now we're back on track. Lazio has to win a couple of matches in a row. 3 would be great, just to gain confidence, gain points, and to prove that the team is with Inzaghi, that the Inzaghi has found the right solution, and that this is just a negative moment. Because again, as I said before, you can see it in 2 different ways. The positive is Lazio is playing great football. Lazio is creating a lot of chances. At the moment, I think Korea in Europe is the player that had more chances than anybody, but only scored once. So while all the others scored like 5 times with 20 shot on target. So you can see that Lazio's playing great football, creating that many chances, which is really important. But on the other side, you can say, hey, if you're playing that well and you're not able to win matches, what's going to happen when you're going to play bad? So Lazio has to get back on track. Genoa is not easy. We know that Pandev is going to score. Lazio struggle against Genoa normally. So it's going to be a very important match. Lazio have to win, because on the other side, Alistair, Roma is struggling. Milan is playing terribly. Fiorentina won the first match after February. So, the fight is still open. The fight for the Champions League spot is still open, because all of the teams are struggling. And at this point, I could say that Atalanta would be a very dangerous team, because, everybody said, no, this year Atalanta's not going to make it. Hey, they beat Roma. They're there again. So, the 4th spot is really available for Lazio, but you have to start playing football. You have to start winning matches, and start winning 2-3 matches in a row, and get confidence, and send a message to the other teams that Lazio's back, and Lazio's really looking forward to get the Champions League this time.
Yeah, and I think they're capable of that. In this run of games, I don't see why they're not capable of getting results, and they really should, to be honest. They made pretty short work of Parma on Sunday, and yeah, I think Genoa, Bologna, Atalanta, all those teams will be a bigger challenge than Parma. But at the same time, they're all winnable games. We had one absolutely brutal take on things on Facebook from Kevin Michael, which I'll read out for the depressing side of the argument. He says, when do we start talking about our options that don't include Inzaghi, or better yet, an owner that isn't Lotito? This club is just plain mediocre. Mediocrity. It makes me not want to watch. I kind of wish we would fight for relegation and somehow never get relegated. About. I mean, doesn't that just make you want to get up in the morning, Vittorio?
Absolutely, I'm pumped up now after this. The problem is, that if there's someone interested in buying Lazio, he should have, make it public and say, hey, I want to buy Lazio. But it never happened, so I don't see why Lotito should be selling the club if no one is interested in buying it. So that's one of the problems. And the second, I already said, okay, imagine Inzaghi gets sacked. Who gets his job? Menichini? There are not many options available. And remember, it's Lotito's team, so it's not...
Someone suggested Eddie Rea, I think.
He's Albania's national coach, right? So he's not available.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that it was a bad time to lose this game because it's come so soon after that huge disappointment of that week against Spal and Cluj. And I think that's why we're getting such severe reactions to this, is that the problems... I think there was a bit of, not an expectation, but at least a hope among the fans that after the summer we had where Inzaghi almost left, where Iglitare almost left, where Milinkovic-Savic could have gone, it promised to be a big summer of change and of high-profile guys leaving the club. And instead, they managed to keep hold of all these guys. And I think all the messages that were coming out of the club, all the stuff that was being written around the club when all this happened was very positive. And that stability factor was looking like it would be a huge advantage compared to the likes of Roma and AC Milan as well. And so I think that having a week like that with the Cluj and Spal games and then now losing to Inter has got this severe reaction out of people because we're seeing the same old things we saw last season, and there's an expectation that things might have changed a bit under a so-called new era. But look, I mean, I don't think an awful lot has really changed. I don't think we really know anything new about this team. And yes, that you can read that as a depressing thing, but then again, this team with these deficiencies has managed to come very, very close to fourth place 2 seasons ago, and then won the Coppa Italia last season and was in the top 4 race until quite late on. I mean, don't let the 8th place finish distract you from the fact that actually until quite late in the season, Lazio were in that race. Up until, I think, probably the defeat against Atalanta, as far as I remember.
Yeah, Lazio gave up after Atalanta last year.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is still a team that's capable of beating big teams, getting good results, and it still has a hell of a lot of quality in it. And I think if we get a couple of wins under our belts, then people will start to remember that again. But at the moment, there is this atmosphere of great frustration. I think those are probably part of the reason.
Yeah, and it's funny because Lazio, you can see it in a positive way, played really, really well against Inter. No other team played that well against Inter. So, you could be in a way happy about that. And it's funny how Lazio fans react because, Inter won all the matches they played in Serie A. It's not that Lazio was the only team losing. If you think about Spal that won only a match, lost all the others, and won only against Lazio, that should be annoying. Losing away against Inter, yes, I agree. It's unbelievable to have so many chances and so great chances and not score once. But, Inter is a very good team and they're going to fight for the Scudetto this year. So you shouldn't be so disappointed. The problem is the situation, and if you think that Roma lost against Atalanta, Milan lost against Torino, you could take advantage of a draw or winning at San Siro. And again, the funny thing is, Lazio played well. Lazio could have easily won that match, but we didn't. So I can understand that people were waiting a reaction, but the problem is, at the end of the day, they are the same player of last year. Johnny was the first start he made. Lazar is the only one who's playing that a lot, and maybe we have to talk about Lazzari as well. I think after starting well against Sampdoria, he's not playing as well as we were hoping so. And this is starting to bother me a little bit because, maybe he could be a good player, but he hasn't got how can I say? He's not mentally fit to play for a big team.
Possibly.
No, I thought yesterday he played very shy, and that's not the first time I have this impression. He didn't push as expected. He didn't defend that well as and that wasn't expected. So, Lazzari should be a sort like Acerbi last year, right? The signing that proved to be a great signing, and I'm not sure anymore.
Well, look, I mean, I think the jury's still out. I think you have to give the guy the benefit of the doubt a little bit because he is a new player. I think everyone expected, me included, that he would fit very, very quickly and easily into the team, and so any kind of semblance of a poor performance will be more upsetting, I suppose, as a result of that, because you're really expecting quite a lot from him. But I think he's been fine so far. I think he's not blown anyone away. If anything, it was Adam Maricic who's impressed more, ironically. But yeah, I mean, I'm not overly concerned, to be honest. I think that he'll find his feet, work his way into the team. Also, I'm not overly concerned about Johnny because, I mean, look, this is a guy who was really thrown into the lion's den a bit last night. I don't think it was entirely fair on him to throw him into that game from the start. And it didn't. Again, we didn't learn anything new. We knew that the defensive side of his game still had a lot of work to do. The thing that disappointed me more was that he wasn't capable of producing much in an attacking sense, which is what we need from him to push up the pitch to get the crosses in the box. So, yeah, I think both of them will require a little bit of time to adapt, and I think they've got a lot of quality, and hopefully we'll see that sooner or later.
And we completely forgot about Vavro. Right? He should be the best defender, helping Acerbi, etc. I think Bastos played a great match, which was probably one of the most positive things about Lazio against Inter, right?
If that goal had gone in, wow.
We have to do a special edition.
I mean, yeah, I was off my feet for that. It was, I mean, it's great to see. I mean, I suppose that's something he does offer. I mean, it's it always takes opposition teams a bit by surprise, but it's a kind of a benefit from him playing on the left side of that defence as well, is that when he does push up like that, he can cut inside onto his favoured foot, and he can actually he can hit one, as we saw against, was it Bologna, the last home game of the season? Yeah, it was unfortunate. I mean, again, you can't really criticise the finish, like I said with Correa's ones, because he hits it low, he hits it in the corner, gets it on target, and if you do that, you're asking the goalkeeper to excel. And unfortunately for us, that's what Handanovic did. But yeah, Bastos has been a real plus so far. At least Felipe's development's continuing. I think he needs to continue playing. So for now, I think Vavro is probably going to be reduced to a few Europa League games.
It's surprising that, for me at least, the players that played well for Lazio were the defender. I thought Felipe, as you were saying, had another great performance. Bastos, we already talked. I think Lukaku didn't do pretty much nothing in that match. And Inter, the only chance they had, they scored thanks to Johnny and Lazzari. So it's funny to think about it, but Lazio defense is not that bad. We can talk about Strakosha, that maybe could have come out there, but I think overall the Johnny has more responsibility on that goal, but Lazio defense played better than the attack, I would say, which is strange to say.
Who would you select as your man of the match then, if you had to? Which you do.
Bastos probably.
Yeah.
You agree?
I mean, I thought Bastos, he did well in an attacking sense, but I thought he was a bit nervous defensively. He did okay. I didn't think it was. I mean, I'm Bastos' biggest fan. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, for me, I think it'd be Caicedo. I think he had a really, really positive impact in the time he had on the pitch. Unfortunately, that was only 53 minutes. I think when Immobile came on, one of Inzaghi's mistakes was taking off Caicedo for him instead of Correa. By that point, Correa had tried everything he could possibly have tried to score and hadn't managed. So I think we saw the importance of having the Caicedo on the pitch to build those attacks around after he came off, because we basically stopped creating anything of note after that point.
One thing about that, Inzaghi said in the press conference after the match that Caicedo was injured and asked to be subbed at the end of the first half, and Inzaghi kept him for 10 minutes and then took him off. So it wasn't, again, a technical decision. It was an injury problem that forced Inzaghi to take off Caicedo. Now, we don't know. We don't know if... I think Immobile would have played anyway. I think a lot of our fans would agree that maybe it would have been better to take off Correa instead of Caicedo, but Caicedo was injured. So that's why he came off, especially so early. I thought this was a substitution that maybe you could have made later in the match.
And what do you think about Berisha? I mean, he's not getting loads of time, but it does seem when he comes off the bench, he does struggle to make much of an impact. I mean, he does a lot of kind of running around looking angry, but doesn't really manage to impact the game, is my impression of him as a kind of substitute, but maybe that's unfair.
I thought the problem was that the rest of the team wasn't running anymore, and you know, when you're 1 against 11, you have no chance. But yeah, I was hoping to see him coming in earlier, maybe instead of Leiva. Berisha could have come earlier, because you can see that he's a different player compared to last year. I hope he's going to start against Genoa. I don't think it's going to happen, but you know, I think that could be an option. And he deserved to have a chance, so maybe against Genoa, it could be a good option. And today, Durmisi came back to training. I think Anderson as well. So now Inzaghi has all the players available. So we're going to see what's going to happen. Even Lukaku have been called for the Inter match. And, you know, Alistair, I still think that if Lukaku was available, probably against Inter, he would have started. But probably he didn't have the 90 minutes in the leg. So that's why Inzaghi chose Johnny.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what shape Lukaku's in when he finally plays again. It seems like it's been so long. I mean, I haven't looked it up. I can't remember the last time Lukaku got a game for Lazio, but considering we thought he was on the way out to Newcastle in January and essentially his time was up, it's kind of remarkable that he's still around, let alone there's a chance of him starting matches again. But, you know, him at his best, he can be a really destructive force, and we've just not seen that regularly enough. But yeah, I mean, it's not a position where we're short of options in, is it, at left wing back?
No, we have options there. So we're gonna see what's gonna happen, because now that we have even Durmisi back, we have Jordan Lukaku, we have Johnny, we have Lulic. So you know, we have plenty of options without forgetting Patrick as well, obviously. Right, he's there available. He can play in that position as well. So we have to see what Inzaghi is gonna do for the next matches, because as you were saying, there's Genoa. It's a match Lazio have to win. If you want to keep fighting for the Champions League, you have to send a message and beat Genoa at home, and then, you know, from there start again and try to put up a couple of matches where Lazio not only play well but brings 3 points home. Who didn't bring points home again in the fantasy football is your team, Alistair Mackenzie. You're going down.
Oh man, I haven't even checked this week.
It's better if you don't. But I can tell you that.
I can't imagine it's good news.
I can tell you that my team instead had a great performance. I'm number 6 now in the league.
Oh, it's even worse.
Absolutely, absolutely. Still La Stella with Marcello Lippi is on top. Persian Lazio, Watch Night, 100 Sword, Nerazzone, and then there is Eagle supporters. I also passed Masei, while our friend Rami lost a little bit of position. He's close to you. You nearly catch him, right? So, guys, as usual, if you want to join us on fantasyseriea.com, there is our league, Lazio Lounge. You'll find the tweet with the code. So if you want to join us and have fun of Alistair Mackenzie, you're more than welcome. It's pretty much easy because he's rubbish. So, but if you want a big challenge, then try to do better than me. That's gonna be more tough for you. So, or you're gonna try to.
Not going to respond to your fighting talk today. I'm a defeated man this week.
Well, try to change the team, right?
I have. I took out. I think I took out Chiesa and Belotti, and then they both go and score. So every change I make seems to be shooting myself in my own foot. So yeah, it's just not going well.
No, absolutely. That's terrible. That's terrible. Please, do we have any Lazio players? Can you sell them so that they're gonna score?
I've got Correa and Alberto still, so maybe it's time to get rid of them. Correa should have got me about 50 points, I think.
Now I understand why Correa doesn't score.
Yeah, I mean, if we had points for kind of shots on goal, then it would have done all right, but unfortunately not.
Now we know why Correa is not scoring anymore, because you have it on the fantasy football. You have to sell it for Lazio. You have to do it. Alistair, do we have other questions?
I don't think so. Well, I mean, we've had a few of which kind of covers ground we've already gone over, so I hope we've satisfied everyone by going through the main talking points tonight anyway.
Yeah, and now Genoa is very, very important. The team is back in Rome. As I said, a lot of players like Dormisi, Anderson are back in training. Lukaku should be fit. So, this is the first time that Inzaghi has all the players available. So, I really hope that against Genoa at home, Lazio will play a great match and get back to the winning streak, because it's really, really important. Lazio played already the derby, played already against Inter, two very complicated matches, so the fixture could be a little bit better now, but Lazio has to start winning, because otherwise you're not going very far. So we're gonna see, and we're gonna talk again on Monday after the match to answer all your questions, guys, and to talk about Lazio Genoa. Very, very important match for Lazio and for all of us who support Lazio. And as usual, if you want to support our podcast, you can find us on iTunes, on Spreaker, on Spotify. Please subscribe and rate and review our podcast. And if you want to support us, remember, we have our Patreon page, patreon.com/Lazio Lounge. Membership starts at $2 a month. So please, if you like the show, you know where to find us. And Alistair, good night. We're going to talk again next Monday.
Great. Hopefully we can be a bit cheerier then.
Yeah, let's hope. Let's hope. Good night, everybody. And please remember to rate and review our podcast. Goodbye.